Hey, what's going on? It's Joey Myers from the Hitting Performance Lab, and I was asked to do a video analysis of Jose Altuve. And this particular video, or this game, it was kind of a compilation of his 3 or 4 hits. He almost hit for the cycle. This is a home run, and he hit this pitch. This is 87 mile an hour. I'm guessing fastball, although it did have some late breaking drop, so maybe it's a changeup. I'm not quite sure, but he did hit this ball a little bit out in front. You can see the ball. You can see the ball's right here, and he's hitting this ball out in front, just to kind of give you some perspective. Ball is about middle of the plate. You'll see when we look at the pitcher's view in a moment. But first, before we get into the actual analysis, is I wanted to say why I am analyzing Jose Altuve, and he is one of the hitters that I like to analyze because I believe that we need to have a better standard of measure of who we're analyzing and who we're using as a swing model. I have some criteria that I tend to look more towards those kind of hitters that match the criteria than other ones, big ones, say like Giancarlo Stanton, who is 6'6", 260 pounds, 4% body fat, right? Even though Giancarlo Stanton does a lot of stuff right, and most of the stuff that I teach he does. But that at least they have, as long as they fill the criteria, those are the model swings. And Jose Altuve is one of those, standing at 5'6", 5'6" tall, and 165 pounds. He's not a big guy by any means, and kind of resembles little Dustin Pedroia-esque. And when we look at the stats, if we look at in Fangraphs, we can see what I like to look at in Fangraphs are their line drive percentage, ground ball, fly ball, and all this kind of stuff. And to give you perspective, give you at least a point of reference, is I like to look at it in terms of the league average. Okay, so if we look at his line drive percentage here is a total. This is the average of his averages, basically. So 21.6 puts him 1% above league average. If we look at his ground ball percentage at 48, it actually puts him about 4% above league average, which is 44%. Fly ball percentage is minus 6%. So he's below average in fly ball percentage, and his home run to fly ball ratio, he's about 3.5 percentage points below average there. So as you can see, he hits a little bit more ground balls, but he hits a little bit more line drives. What we look at, the averages at averages, and what we look at is ISO. So this is isolated slugging percentage. This is more a measure of power. So he's about 20 points above average there. Looking at his batting average on balls in play, which is this number right here, he is about 34 points above average. So batting average on balls in play is kind of a loose measure of how hard a hitter hits the ball. So he's definitely hitting the ball hard, and he's hitting for some power, right? He'll hit, according to baseballreference.com, if we look at his 162 game average, I always like to kind of look at this, and he's got about, looks like 6 years in the big league. He's hit about 11 home runs here, and you see 40 doubles. I mean, that's a lot of doubles. If he can do just those numbers, he'll have 20 plus years if he can stay healthy. His average is 310. So you can see he does very, very well when it comes to balancing average and power. Now you don't have to, I'd like to see more home runs. I'd like to see 20 plus home runs in a power hitter, but this is Jose Altuve, and Dustin Pedroia is about the same. He averages about 15 homers a year. The point is that they hit for average, and they also hit for power, whether you're talking about doubles or home runs. Doubles are going to score runs just as easily as home runs are. So looking at the statistics there, now let's kind of dive into the mechanics of Jose Altuve and what makes him do what he does. Forward momentum is one of the things that I teach, or some form of it. It doesn't have to be a stride. You can see Altuve has like somewhat of a medium leg kick when he goes. A lot of people are so afraid of head movement. You can see head movement here. Not perfect circle here. His head's not in the perfect circle. But you're going to see him move forward out of that circle. You're actually going to see him move down. If you look at the top of his helmet there, you're going to see it move into the circle. So he's actually going to get shorter as well. So you're seeing head movement there, which a lot of people will say, no, his head's not moving. But yes, his head is moving. His center of gravity is another word that I like to use instead of his head movement. So just center of his body, maybe his spine, his head. You see some shifting foot pressure. So this isn't the best camera angle to see where this back knee is, but it sure looks like it's hovering over the ankle. It's not inside the back foot. You don't see a ton of forward momentum like you do with Dustin Pedroia here. So you're probably not going to see that knee shift or stay inside the back toe like a lot of instructors try and teach all their hitters to do, which I don't think is right, because every hitter is going to be different in this sense. You're going to see this knee hovering over, and you're going to see he's going to have foot pressure on the outside of this back foot. Okay, it's not going to be in the inside because he doesn't have the knees shifted inside unnaturally. So then what you're going to see is as his front foot, his stride foot approaches the ground, you're going to start to see this shift in foot pressure. So from the outside of the back foot, you're going to see as the front foot lands, you're going to see inside of the front foot. Okay, so it's opposites. The foot pressure is opposites when we're moving sideways. And then what we're going to see is we're going to see a shift. So the shift from outside to inside is going to happen on the back foot, and from inside to outside is going to happen here. Evidenced, and you can see that Altuve is one of those hitters that tries to stride closed. Again, this isn't probably the best camera angle, but you can see closed toe, and before even making contact, so the ball's out here, you can see his front foot is already peeling open. It's not even on the ground. The bottom part of the front part of his foot, or the ball of his foot's not even on the ground, and he's already shifting to the outside because that's the important part of the foot at this part of the swing. But you can see it pop open already. So if he did a stride this way, we'd see probably a little bit more outside of this front foot on the ground as he's kind of peeling. But then you really see it open up past impact. But the point is that he's using shifting foot pressure. So he's going from outside of the back foot, inside of the back foot as he's falling forward. He's inside of the front foot, and then you'll see as he starts his turn that he's going to shift that foot pressure, and you're going to see that back foot. It doesn't really leave the ground, but it does move forward slightly. You can see it moving forward. Look at my cursor down here, my finger. You can see that back foot is moving forward slightly. And it's not that it's skipping, but it's just that his center of gravity is moving forward during his turn, or at least right before his turn. So he's shifting his weight to his front side. Not 100%, but his center of gravity is kind of behind that front side as he goes into his turn. So we see shifting foot pressure, moving center of gravity, and we do see forward momentum here. So now, if we look at pitch plane domination, is what I like to call being consistent, basically. Okay, so being able to take this imaginary line, if we draw with the ball coming in here, see if we can draw this line into the catcher's glove. So this is the pitch plane. Our job as a hitter, if we want to stay consistent and to build margin for error into the swing, is we need to match that plane of the pitch as best as we can. So the hitters that can balance power with average, trying to be consistent with our power or be consistent in general, there are a few factors that we look at. So one of them is knee action. Basically being athletic in an athletic position, as we can see here. You can see he's got a bent back knee. You can see the front knee is obviously bent in the air. He's got a slight hinge forward. We will look at this from the pitcher's view as well. But you'll see that he lands with the bent front knee. It doesn't look that way from this view, but we'll look from the pitcher's view in a moment. So he's got bent knees at landing. So we can actually see, if I draw another line at the top of his head, we can see what I call getting shorter and staying shorter. If we do a line on the top of his head, now the camera is kind of moving forward a little bit, but you can see him drop under this line. Now he's not a big guy, so he doesn't really need to drop that much, but you're going to see him stay under that line as well. And he does that by using his knee action. So front knee action is getting shorter, so landing on the bent front knee, and then staying shorter or staying under that bar by using the back knee, because the front knee is going to straighten, or at least that's what I like to teach my hitters. So we see knee action, we see the getting shorter and staying shorter, matching plane of the pitch. Now check this out. Now look at his barrel. A lot of coaches say that this is casting out and this is getting too long with your barrel. But look at where catcher's glove is, Altuve's barrel. Look how close his barrel comes to hitting that catcher's glove. Now catchers, for the most part in the big leagues, from what I hear, is they tend to be a little closer to the hitter than, say, little leaguers or junior high or possibly even high school. The truth remains is that we see this barrel kicking back behind him, what we like to call a Nike swoosh sign. So we see the barrel making a Nike swoosh sign. So it kind of comes around here and then goes this way. So we see him getting on plane early. This is what we say is get on plane ASAP. Get on that plane of the pitch, this imaginary line drawn from the pitcher's release point into the catcher's glove. And then we want to match that plane and stay on that plane for as long as possible. You can see the power V position, past impact or post impact. We don't strive for the V position at impact, because then that's going to leave us vulnerable to inside and high pitches that are, according to Perry Husband, effective velocity, that are registered to a hitter that's perceived faster in velocity. So we don't want to get to power V at impact, but if it happens because we're out in front, then it's going to happen. You can see him get extended, and that barrel just chases the ball nice and long. He gets nice and lets that barrel come through. You can see he's not trying to keep that back elbow, which I've seen, attached to the rib cage, attach. That back elbow, when it slots, a lot of times these online instructors talk about sliding the back elbow. The slide in the back elbow happens, but it's very, very brief, depending on pitch location, depending on timing, all those kind of things. It's just like throwing a rock sideways or sidearm across the lake. You're not going to take your throwing elbow and you're not going to keep it stuck to your rib cage the whole entire part of the swing. It has to just pass through and then release at some point, again, depending on pitch location, pitch speed, and timing, all that stuff. But it doesn't just stick to the rib cage and then cut your swing off at the end, because then we lose being on the plane of the pitch over here. If we're talking about being short to the ball all the time, knob to ball, swing down, like all this stuff being short and trying to take kind of like an A to C path to the ball, then what happens is that we lose any kind of margin for error back here. So we cut down on, in case we're late on a ball, to be able to hit the ball as a righty on a line to the opposite field. So we want to make sure that we are quick to the plane of the pitch. We are get on plane of the pitch as early as possible, basically barrel intercepting the ball from the catcher's glove. We want to get there and we want to leave it there. So that's a pitch plane domination. Let me actually pull back and show you the knee bend here real quick before we move on. So you're going to see at landing right here, you see a big knee bend in the front knee. That was a hard angle before to kind of see his knee bent. So now let's move on to the catapult loading system. So his power. So where are his 40 doubles a season and his 11 homers a season coming from, and his 20 plus ISO, 20 points higher ISO happening? So showing the numbers. Now if we look at him from this view, we can see a little bit of his 2 made out here. And then what we're going to see as he goes into his load, he's loading that springy fascia, which is like cotton candy like material. That is what our bones and muscles float in. So it gives muscles their shape and is made up of mostly collagen fibers. Very springy, likes to resist change in shape. What he's doing is he's taking the front shoulder, and not so much down and in because he's not getting a lot of downward shoulder angle, but he's taking it at least in. So we're starting to see the makeup of his, I think that's a 7 over there. So you're seeing the two totally visible, and then the second number you're starting to see there as he's getting ready to touch down and go into his turn. You're also seeing him hide his hands somewhat, kind of behind his head, but it shifts down to more of like a what I call knockout punch position. So if somebody's going to knock somebody out, you're not just going to leave your hands out in front where the opponent can see the hands. You're actually the hitter's going to hide the hands from the pitcher. So you see that hiding of the hand, you see showing the numbers. You also see a hunched posture, okay? It's not like a Hunter Pence hunch, but you do see kind of, if you look at his belt loop, you can see him go almost into a tilt, maybe to where you see kind of a posterior pelvic tilt, or if his hips were a bowl of water or his pelvis were a bowl of water, you'd see water spilling out on his heels. So you see kind of like a loading or a straightening of the lower back here. So that's all part of the catapult loading system, what I teach. And then if we go back to when we look at his down shoulder angle, which is really the only thing probably I would, if he even asked me, which probably wouldn't even happen, but if he were to ask me what he could he do better, we'd probably work on a little bit more of a down shoulder angle here, just a slight one. He's pretty much level, but I'd like to see somewhat of a down one. That's the only thing that I see there. The other thing I wanted to mention that I actually learned from Aaron Miles, who played 8 or 9 years in the big leagues with the Cardinals, Dodgers, and Rockies. He was a small guy too, and he told me that he did a lot of pitch recognition when he was playing. So he had a high school coach that was pretty in tune to that. And that was one thing that he did. He was a smaller guy as well. I think he said he was 5'7", 5'8", 100 and just about Altuve, Des Pedroia. And he said they did a lot of pitch recognition training. And that's one thing I bet you I would place money on that Jose Altuve does as well. So I hope this video kind of shed some light on Jose Altuve and his swing and kind of what he does, how he does what he does with his outcomes. We went over the stats. We went over does he have forward momentum present? How does he do with his pitch plane domination and the catapult loading system? Make sure that we're swinging smarter by moving better. And before I let you go,
the Hitting Performance Lab wants to know, did you know repeatable hitting power does not start in the hips? Have you heard the expressions, load and explode the hips? Power comes from the hips. Well, we created a free video revealing the results of a scientific study that will show you how we added 48 feet of batted ball distance instantly. And it's not all about the hips. Click here now to get the video while it's still free.